Welcome back to episode 4 of Case Forgotten, Paranormal Investigators. In today's episode, we're delving into the topic of Svalbard Global Seed Vault, a frozen doomsday bunker built into an Arctic mountain, stuffed with over 1 million seeds, quietly funded by governments and the same corporations who caused the problem it was built to fix. However, before we do, if you're enjoying the content so far and would like to support the channel and keep up with our great videos, please subscribe, like the video, and leave a comment to let us know what we should talk about next. Anyways, let's get on with the video. Deep beneath the Arctic permafrost, on an island closer to the North Pole than to the nearest city, there is a door. A single steel door built into the side of a frozen mountain. Behind it, a tunnel that cuts 130 meters into the rock. And at the end of that tunnel, sealed in 3 vaults kept at minus 18 degrees Celsius, are the seeds of almost every food crop that has ever existed on Earth. They call it the Svalbard Global Seed Vault. Most people have never heard of it. That is not an accident. The island is called Spitsbergen. It sits halfway between mainland Norway and the North Pole, so remote that the polar bears outnumber the people. Norway owns the land. The Global Crop Diversity Trust runs the operation, and nations send their seeds here, not because someone asked, but because they decided together that this needed to exist. The question worth asking is why? Why in 2008 did the most powerful governments on Earth suddenly agree that humanity needed an emergency backup of its entire food supply? What did they know that they weren't saying out loud? A seed is not just a plant waiting to grow. It's thousands of years of human knowledge compressed into something smaller than your thumbnail. Every crop variety alive today was shaped by generations of farmers refining plants to survive specific soils and climates. That took 10,000 years to build. In the last century alone, we've lost roughly 75% of all agricultural plant diversity. Not from war, from industrial farming, quietly replacing everything with a handful of commercial varieties. Once a variety is gone, it is gone forever. Syria once held one of the most important seed banks in the world. In Aleppo, packed with wheat and barley adapted to drought and heat. When civil war broke out in 2011, scientists packaged their most critical samples and sent them to Svalbard for safekeeping. In 2015, with Aleppo under siege, they made the vault's first ever withdrawal, retrieved their own seeds, and rebuilt what they could in Morocco and Lebanon. The system worked exactly as designed. The fact that it was needed should have frightened everyone far more than it did. In 2017, the permafrost melted. Unusually warm Arctic temperatures sent meltwater seeping into the vault's entrance tunnel, a scenario that original designers had called essentially impossible. The seeds were fine. The inner vaults held, but the very permafrost the vault relied on for passive refrigeration was no longer stable. Norway spent tens of millions of dollars waterproofing the tunnel. They called it precautionary. What they didn't say out loud was that the facility built to survive floods, nuclear war, and an asteroid impact had already been compromised by the climate crisis it was built to protect against. Here's the strange legal wrinkle. Depositing countries keep full ownership of their seeds. Norway can't touch another nation's deposits without permission. That's by design, so nobody is afraid to participate. But it raises an odd question. If a government collapses, if a nation stops existing in the form it did when it made the deposit, the legal status of those seeds becomes genuinely unclear. There are seeds in that vault right now from nations and institutions that no longer exist as they once did. Nobody talks publicly about what happens to orphan seeds. The paperwork for that scenario does not appear to exist. What the vault cannot protect against is the thing its founders most carefully avoid naming. A seed is only useful if someone still knows what it grows into, what soil it needs, how to cultivate it, how to save it for the next season. That knowledge lives in farmers, in traditions, in indigenous communities that have kept these crop varieties alive for generations. And many of those communities are shrinking. The vault preserves the biological material. It does not preserve the human knowledge that gives that material meaning. That is the gap in the plan that nobody has solved. The funding behind Svalbard is worth a second look. The Global Crop Diversity Trust has taken major money from the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, the Rockefeller Foundation, several governments, and a consortium of the world's largest agricultural companies, including some that hold the patents on the very commercial seed varieties that helped cause this whole crisis in the first place. The same companies whose products displaced thousands of traditional crops now help fund the vault built to preserve what their products replaced. The trust calls this pragmatic. Preservation needs money, and money needs partners. That may be true. It's still worth holding in your mind. The Svalbard vault was built for a catastrophe that hasn't happened yet. A global crop failure. A civilizational collapse severe enough that humanity has to reach into a frozen mountain and pull out 10,000-year-old agricultural memory. The people who built it aren't alarmists. They looked at the narrowing of our food supply, the instability of the climate, and decided a backup wasn't paranoia. It was responsibility. So they built it quietly, filled it quietly, and locked the door. And if you ever find yourself wondering what they know that we don't, the vault is the answer. Or at least, it's the shape of the answer. The full answer is still locked away somewhere far colder and far darker than any seed bank. Thanks for sticking around for this one. I'll see you in the next story.